Hello everyone! Today we're beginning a mini-series on the seasons of God. And you will discover that every season of God has a very specific purpose for your life. That means not just the fruitful seasons or the seasons of blessing and the seasons of rain, but also the seasons of drought and dryness and desert conditions. You know, that's why a lot of people are troubled. They don't understand why God actually placed them in a particular season and for what purpose it serves. But you're going to discover that even in the desert, in the dryness, in the drought, God is actually at work. He's trying to find out what you are made of. In fact, King David went through a period of drought on a spiritual level, and he wrote about it in Psalm 32, verses 4 to 5. This is what he said: "Day and night your hand was heavy upon me. My strength dried up as by the heat of the summer. Salah. I acknowledged my sin to you, and I did not cover my iniquity. I said, I will confess my transgressions to the Lord, and you forgave the iniquity of my sin. Salah." Why did I read that passage? Because it has two very important words that we tend to overlook when we're reading the Bible. The word Selah, the pause. It's not just to take a break or take a breath. The Selah of God is a moment where you stop reading, you begin to meditate, you begin to digest, and God moves on your behalf. Now, what do we see in this passage? The dryness in David's soul actually unveiled hidden sins. And once he confessed those sins, he was set free and he was able to move forward. That's often what happens during periods of drought. Every drought has a purpose. Even in the Lord, it's not meant to lead to death or hopelessness. Even Job wrote in chapter 24, verse 19, that drought and heat allow the earth to absorb the water from the melted snow. Well, that's very similar to what happens in a spiritual drought. In your life, you're meant to absorb and to appropriate the living water of God's Word. Isaiah 55 verses 10 and 11 talks about that word like snow or like rain, never returning to Him without accomplishing its ultimate purposes in your life. You know another thing about drought? It actually represents the time when all of the insects are multiplied. We have some wheat fields around our house, and every summer when they begin to harvest the wheat fields, we get these tiny little microscopic bugs that fly out of the wheat fields and invade our home and our hair and our ears and our nose and our mouth. They are everywhere. I think in some places they're called no-see-ums. They're so tiny. Well, that's because of the dryness. When there's no rain and there's agitation, all of these little hidden things come to the surface. And that's why God uses drought to bring those little hidden things in our lives to the surface. Jeremiah 14 talks about it, and the prophet is actually describing the situation in Israel as a drought where the farmers are ashamed and even the animals can't feed their young because there is no food to be had. But what happens at the end of that passage is that the people realize it is our shortcomings, our backsliding, our compromise that has caused this drought. And all of those hidden sins come to the surface so that they can be addressed and so that they can be dealt with. You know what? In times of drought, you need to stay even more hydrated. But what that means is water is sometimes hard to come by, and you have to pay a greater price for water. Well, it's the same with God's Word. During dry spells in your spiritual life, you begin to realize that there's a price to pay for more of that living water. Jesus is our source of everything. And you come back to that fundamental truth so that your life gets back on track. Jesus is our everything. He is that source that never dries up. He is that presence that will never disappear, that life that will never diminish. He's the living Word that you will never lack. And He is the strength of your heart and the refreshment of your soul. So if you're going through a dry spell, Let that drought lead you back to the source and reconnect you to Jesus more than ever before in your life. It is time this week to check your heart and see if you're attached to the source of life, to that source of living water. Let it be a challenge to you, and let me know what you discover by writing in the comments. I'll see you soon.